J.D. Vance entered the confrontation with Jasmine Crockett carrying the confidence of someone who believed he had the upper hand, a sense of certainty that his words would not only challenge her but possibly embarrass her. What he did not anticipate was how swiftly she would turn this situation back on him with her sharp wit and undeniable presence. Underestimating an opponent in politics can be one of the most dangerous mistakes because it creates blind spots, and those blind spots can be exploited in seconds. Crockett thrives in the very space where others expect her to falter. Her energy, quick thinking, and fearless delivery are qualities that allow her to dismantle a challenge before it even gains traction. Vance's miscalculation was not just in what he said but in the assumption that Crockett would be unprepared or unable to parry with the same force, and that was where the tide turned against him immediately. The underestimation itself carries deep meaning in political settings. Many politicians enter debates or confrontations with a strategy that depends on their opponent being caught off guard, unsure, or hesitant to strike back. But in Crockett's case, her readiness to respond is part of who she is. Her voice carries authority not only because of the words she chooses but because of the conviction with which she delivers them. When Vance challenged her, he inadvertently gave her the stage, and once she had it, she used it to expose how weak his attack truly was. This ability to take an attempted insult or provocation and flip it into an opportunity is the hallmark of sharp wit. Crockett showed that she could not only defend herself but also put her challenger on the defensive, and that was what made the moment so striking to those watching. Sharp wit in politics is more than just clever words. It is the ability to understand the subtext, the emotion of the crowd, the body language of the opponent, and then craft a response that hits multiple levels at once. Crockett's reply did not simply counter Vance's words, it reframed the entire exchange. She revealed his underestimation, she exposed the weakness of his position, and she elevated her own standing all in a matter of seconds. That is why people reacted so strongly to the moment, because it showed a mastery of timing and delivery. Vance's attempt to assert control fell apart as soon as Crockett responded, and the shift was visible to everyone who witnessed it. The larger context of underestimation also cannot be ignored. Too often in political environments, women, and especially women of color, are assumed to be less prepared, less forceful, or less capable of holding their ground in heated exchanges. Vance's approach reflected that broader pattern of misjudgment. What he failed to realize was that Crockett had built her reputation on challenging assumptions and refusing to be silenced. When he attempted to put her in a corner, she instead used that moment to demonstrate resilience and intelligence, creating an example of why dismissive tactics so often backfire. In this way, the confrontation became more than a personal clash, it became symbolic of a broader struggle where underestimated voices seized the chance to prove their strength. The swiftness of Crockett's wit is what amplified the impact. When someone responds immediately with precision, it leaves no room for the challenger to regain footing. Vance did not just lose the argument in that instant, he lost the perception of control. Once an audience senses that a speaker has been outmaneuvered, it is nearly impossible to recover momentum. Crockett's timing ensured that his challenge did not linger as a threat but instead collapsed under the weight of her response. Quick thinking in political discourse is like striking first in a duel. It sets the tone, and from that moment on, the opponent is forced to react rather than lead. What makes underestimation such a devastating miscalculation is that it exposes the challenger's lack of preparation. Vance assumed Crockett would be the one scrambling to keep up, but when the reverse happened, it highlighted his failure to prepare for her style and skill. This failure magnified her strengths while diminishing his. The image of a confident challenger being suddenly silenced or thrown off balance is powerful because it flips the expected script. Audiences admire resilience, and when Crockett turned the tables, she not only defended herself but also reinforced the perception that she cannot be easily shaken. Vance, meanwhile, was left to grapple with the reality that his approach had backfired. In moments like these, perception often outweighs the content of the words themselves. The way Crockett delivered her response, with confidence, steadiness, and an air of certainty, spoke volumes to the audience. People watching saw not just a clash of words but a clash of composure. Her sharp wit underscored her command of the moment, while his visible surprise betrayed his lack of readiness. This imbalance created a dynamic that favored her throughout the remainder of the exchange. Once an audience perceives someone as being outmatched, they begin to tune in more closely to the stronger voice, which in this case was Crockett's. The lesson in this keynote is embedded in the nature of underestimation. When a political figure assumes their opponent will be unable to respond effectively, they often expose themselves to the very outcome they seek to avoid. Vance underestimated the sharpness of Crockett's wit, and in doing so, he handed her an opportunity to shine. Her quick, fearless response not only disarmed his challenge but also reinforced her standing as someone who cannot be dismissed. By thinking she would be caught off guard, he revealed his own vulnerability, and she capitalized on it with remarkable skill. Jasmine Crockett's fearless clapback during her exchange with J.D. Vance did more than just defend her position, it completely shifted the momentum of the moment. What started as an attempt by Vance to assert dominance quickly unraveled the instant Crockett responded with strength, confidence, and wit. The shift in momentum is one of the most powerful dynamics in political discourse because it determines who holds control of the audience's attention and respect. Vance may have entered the conversation expecting to lead it, but Crockett's clapback turned the tables so sharply that he became the one reacting instead of directing. This reversal is what made the exchange unforgettable, because audiences are always drawn to the person who can seize control under pressure and turn defense into offense in a matter of seconds. Momentum in debates or public confrontations is often intangible, but it is unmistakable when it changes hands. Before Crockett's response, Vance carried himself as though he had the advantage, using his platform to throw out a challenge he thought would unsettle her. The clapback immediately punctured that illusion. Her response was not only quicker but also sharper, and it carried a tone that left little room for rebuttal. This is the essence of fearless delivery. When someone speaks without hesitation, without the slightest sign of intimidation, the audience instantly senses that the balance has shifted. Vance's authority in that moment dissolved, while Crockett's presence expanded, filling the room with the energy of someone who was unapologetically in control. Fearlessness plays a central role in why Crockett's response resonated so strongly. Many times in politics, people facing attacks will try to soften their tone or redirect the conversation in an attempt to stay composed. Crockett chose the opposite approach. She leaned directly into the confrontation, making it clear that she would not allow Vance to diminish her voice. That refusal to back down sent a clear signal not only to Vance but also to everyone watching. It demonstrated that she was not just defending herself, she was owning the moment. Fearless clapbacks are powerful because they project confidence, and confidence is contagious. The audience, whether in the room or watching from afar, begins to align with the energy of the person who appears unshaken, and that is exactly what happened here. The shift in momentum also revealed how fragile Vance's position truly was. Before Crockett spoke, he held the upper hand because he had the floor. But control in politics is rarely about who speaks first, it is about who speaks with greater impact. Crockett's words cut through the noise and dismantled his posture of control. The fearlessness with which she delivered them ensured that her point would not just be heard but remembered. In that instant, Vance transitioned from attacker to defender, and defenders almost always find themselves at a disadvantage in public confrontations. When you are defending, you are reacting, and when you are reacting, you are no longer leading the conversation. This is the precise way in which Crockett's clapback shifted the momentum. She forced him into a position where he could no longer dictate the direction of the exchange. Momentum shifts like this are often amplified by body language and tone as much as by words. Crockett's composure, her deliberate pacing, and her refusal to waver all added layers to the force of her clapback. Audiences do not simply listen, they observe. They notice when someone maintains eye contact, when their voice carries conviction, when their body communicates confidence. Crockett embodied all of these elements in that moment, and that visual reinforcement magnified the effectiveness of her response. Vance, on the other hand, revealed through his reaction that he had not anticipated being caught off guard. That contrast between steadiness and surprise underscored the shift in momentum and left the impression that he had miscalculated gravely. Another critical element of the clapback was its ability to reframe the narrative. Vance's challenge was meant to put Crockett on the defensive, but her fearless delivery transformed it into an opportunity to highlight her strength and assertiveness. By turning his words back on him, she took ownership of the conversation and redefined it on her own terms. This reframing is one of the most potent aspects of a clapback because it does more than just shut down an attack. It changes the lens through which the audience perceives the entire exchange. What had begun as Vance's attempt to elevate himself ended as Crockett's showcase of her resilience and authority. That shift in perception is why the moment resonated far beyond the immediate interaction. The momentum change also speaks to why audiences are captivated by such exchanges. People are drawn to authenticity, and Crockett's response felt unfiltered, genuine, and rooted in conviction. She did not appear to be calculating her words or hesitating. She spoke as though she owned her space and refused to surrender it. Authentic moments like that create emotional resonance with audiences, and emotional resonance often matters more than logical arguments in political confrontations. Vance's words may have been planned, but Crockett's fearless clapback cut through because it carried the weight of lived conviction. That authenticity transformed the exchange into more than just a back and forth. It became a defining moment of power and presence. Fearlessness in politics is magnetic because it reveals a refusal to be diminished, and Crockett's clapback encapsulated that perfectly. Her willingness to stand firm, to respond without flinching, and to seize control made the momentum shift inevitable. In debates and confrontations, the audience senses when someone takes command of the moment, and once that shift occurs, it is nearly impossible for the opponent to reclaim the stage. Vance's attempt to challenge her was swallowed by the force of her response, and the result was that Crockett left the stronger impression. The momentum had fully shifted, not because she raised her voice or overpowered him with volume, but because she delivered her words with a fearless clarity that made retreat impossible.